from Central Ohio's news leader. This is 10 TV News at 5.
With faith in Jesus Christ, we receive the body of our brother George for burial.
His life code, as he said, was tell the truth, don't blame people, be strong, do your best, try hard.
He was born with just two settings, full throttle, then sleep.
He was a class act from birth to death. He housed the strong sinews in mind and body.
A great and noble man, the best father a son or daughter could have. And in our grief, let us smile knowing that Dad is hugging Robin and holding Mom's hand again.
A powerful tribute to former President George Herbert Walker Bush today. His son, W, says he was close to perfect in his eyes.
Right now, we're waiting for the body of President George H.W. Bush to land in Houston, Texas, where he will lie in repose at his church until a private funeral tomorrow. A common theme during today's state funeral, H.W. was a family man, a good friend, and a thoughtful leader.
U.S. and world leaders, past and present, attended the state funeral at Washington's National Cathedral. It was an emotional and moving service filled with music and praise for the 41st president.
I am the resurrection and I am the life, says the Lord. Whoever has faith in me shall have life, even though he die.
George Herbert Walker Bush was America's last great soldier statesman, a 20th century founding father, an imperfect man. He left us a more perfect union.
50 or 100 years from now, as historians review the accomplishments and the context of all who have served as president, I believe it will be said that no occupant of the Oval Office was more courageous, more principled, and more honorable than George Herbert Walker Bush.
The most decent and honorable person I ever met was my friend George Bush, one of nature's noble men. His epitaph, perhaps just a single letter, the letter L for loyalty. It coursed through his blood.
Your decency, sincerity, and kind soul will stay with us forever. So through our tears, let us know the blessings of knowing and loving you, a great and noble man, the best father a son or daughter could have. And in our grief, let us smile knowing that Dad is hugging Robin and holding Mom's hand again.
The former president will be laid to rest with his beloved wife, Barbara, who died earlier this year, and his 3-year-old daughter, Robin, who died back in the 50s from leukemia.
Well, Bush 41 had so many friends from Congress, and one in particular stole the show today at the National Cathedral.
And our host of Face the State, Scott Light, joins us now with that part of the service.
So the gentleman that you are referring to is former Wyoming Senator Alan Simpson, whose relationship with George H.W. Bush goes back to the 60s. When Simpson was taking some heat in the media back in the 90s, President Bush invited Mr. Simpson and his wife to Camp David to perk up his friend. Simpson said that's Bush, dedicated to his friends, loving, and a man who didn't have hate in his heart.
He never hated anyone. He knew what his mother and my mother always knew. Hatred corrodes the container it's carried in.
Simpson also got some big laughs today. He said Bush 41 loved a good joke, but could never remember the punchline when telling one. And Simpson also had this zinger about humility in the ego-driven city that is Washington, D.C.
And he was a man of such great humility. Those who travel the high road of humility in Washington, D.C. are not bothered by heavy traffic.
They kept on laughing about that one. Simpson called H.W. the most decent and most honorable man he had ever met. Simpson said that his epitaph could have just one letter on it, L, or the word loyal.
There was so much dignity and grace in that service today, and seeing those former presidents together also added to it.
And you think about this family, the Bush family. It's one of our dynastic political families that we've ever had in the history of our country. And the nation said goodbye to the patriarch of that family
and
today.
hear so many good things, you know. The family has to feel good, just the wonderful words people have to say. So, all right, thank you, Scott.
You betcha.
Well, 3,200 people packed into the National Cathedral today, and that included all 5 living presidents, as we mentioned. They all sat in order of succession in the front row. George W. Bush opted to sit with his family. It wasn't the warmest reception, though, for President Trump. There was no handshake with the Clintons.
Mentions of H.W.'s love of life came up often during today's service. Barbara Bush passed away this spring. The two were constant companions, always holding hands. Presidential biographer John Meacham recalled this about the couple.
In this work, he had the most wonderful of allies in Barbara Pierce Bush, his wife of 73 years. He called her Bar, the Silver Fox, and, when the situation warranted, the enforcer. He was the only boy she ever kissed. Her children, Mrs. Bush liked to say, always wanted to throw up when they heard that.
Some great lines there. The Bushes had 6 children. They were married for 73 years, the longest in presidential history.
Beautiful. Well, President Bush will be buried next to his one true love and his daughter, Robin.
And as we mentioned, H.W.'s body is being brought back to Houston tonight. His casket will stay at St. Martin's Episcopal Church, where he and wife Barbara worshiped. Tomorrow, a private funeral with about 1,200 guests will begin at 10 a.m. And then the president's casket will be taken by train to College Station, the home of his presidential library at Texas A&M University. That is where he will be buried at a gated family plot with his wife and daughter Robin, who died of leukemia at age 3.
Well, stay with us as we continue to bring you live coverage of the tributes and memorials for George H.W. Bush. You can watch it live right here or online at 10tv.com.
Now, George W. Bush gave a touching eulogy, as you heard, that made people cry and laugh.
I once heard it said of man that the idea is to die young as late as possible.
In his own words, a tribute from son to father, president to president.
As we move ahead, repurposing the home of the crew. How you can weigh in on a plan to turn Mafre Stadium into a sports park.
And we've seen some stubborn flurries out there today. Most of them have now moved off the east. That's going to go away. We'll actually go back to being partly cloudy overnight. But you can see just a couple little tiny areas. Southern Pickaway County, south of Circleville, over in Fayette County, maybe just a little tiny bit. There's a little more hanging along the Ohio River down in southern Ohio, particularly moving out of Gallia County and heading down to the southeast. So this is tapering off tonight, but unfortunately, temperatures are going to taper off as well. Right now, for the most part, we're barely in the 30s. Northwest Ohio in the 20s, and the wind chills, if you want to talk about it at all, are generally down in the teens. 18 at Marysville, 18 at Kenton, 19 at Washington Courthouse, and 19 at Marion. Brr. We'll take a look at where we go from here and when we might get a warm-up. All coming up.